roads they go through and everything. So even your daughter would probably enjoy that.
Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, December 4th, 2012. It's 6:30 p.m. We're at the Palm Coast Community Center for the regularly scheduled meeting of the Palm Coast City Council. Would you please rise and join me in a Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Mayor Ness?
Here.
Vice Mayor Lewis?
Yep.
Councilmember
here.
DiLorenzo?
Here.
Councilmember McGuire?
Here.
Councilmember Ferguson is excused.
Very good. First item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes of the November 20th City Council meeting and the November 27th City Council workshop. Are there any additions, corrections, or is there a motion for approval?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries without objection. Agenda item number 2, presentation of Children Helping in Resource Protection Program. Chirp. Mr. Landon. Chirp.
Sure.
Chirp.
This program is a great example of us working together with our friends at the state and the school district, and it's all about the kids. And this is one of those things that is kind of above and beyond what we normally do, but Carol takes the lead and tries to help out educating young people and about a lot of the great things here in Palm Coast. And so we have recently had some very positive experiences, and so I asked Carol to make a little presentation and let you know what we're doing out there.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm Carol Bennett, the Urban Forester for the City of Palm Coast, and I am thrilled to be here to talk to you about Children Helping in Resource Protection. That's what CHIRP stands for. So just to give you a little bit of background on the program, it started in 2008 with Caring for Trees. It was a little skit that Mr. Butler, the city's landscape architect, and I put together where we would go into the schools and we would do a little play, and we would actually pull students from the audience and have them become trees. And of course, me being the good forester and the tree hugger that I am, my trees survived. And Bill Butler, he was way too busy watching SpongeBob SquarePants, so his trees died. So we were explaining to the kids about caring for trees and what it entails, and also the benefits that the trees provide for the children in their life. So with that program, we ended up receiving a grant from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, which gave us money to create the program called Drawing the Line. This program stands for Long Creek Invasive Native Exchange Program. And those grant dollars were given to us on the basis of teaching children about invasive species and native plants and our environment. So with that, that's where CHIRP was born. We developed new programs to open more of a broader spectrum to meet the demands of different age levels and different subject material. So we kept our Caring for Trees for the younger K through 3rd, 4th grade. And then we developed this in-school eco-station rotation where we actually go out to the schools and we set up different stations. One will be on invasive plants, native plants. Mr. Butler generally handles that. Miss Denise Bevan, our environmental planner, she talks about wildlife, and she's always a big hit because she has a whole tub of critters and carcasses that the kids love to see and touch. And then we will feature a special guest such as Gina Holt with Wild About Birds, where the kids actually get to see wildlife. She brings a red-shouldered hawk, a couple of different owls, and also a kestrel. We also will partner with Whitney Lab as well and bring them out to Waterfront Park, and the kids get to do a rotation with sea life. So that brings me to the next one, which is Waterfront Park and Linear Park Eco Station Rotation. And this is where we bus the students out to our parks. So they get to experience these eco stations and then also our parks. It's really amazing how many of our students and those residents that live here and have not been to some of our parks. And then we have I've Got an Idea. We'll have teachers call us up and say, I'm looking for someone to do a program on this topic. Can you help us out? Do you have anyone that in your profession that you know that could help us out? So sometimes we will tailor a program specifically for what the teacher is looking for. Then came Drawing the Line. So just to give you another example of the in-school program, to the top left is Miss Bevan, and we did a program for Wadsworth Elementary, and they wanted a soils class. So we went in with a couple of other instructors, and we taught the kids about soil. And over here on the right, that's Belterre, and we did the Eco Station rotation. That was one of the first programs that we held there. And then in the bottom is Wadsworth, where we brought in and we partnered with the Division of Forestry, and we brought Smokey Bear to the kids. And of course, he was a huge hit and received a lot of hugs. Waterfront Park Eco Station rotation. What we do with this program is we teach the kids about the land and the sea. The children get to see a gopher home. We scope it with a scope and show them the different critters that inhabit the home. They're always really excited to see that because it's very rare that you ever have that opportunity, even as adults. Then they'll go on a nature walk with Mr. Butler, and he will talk about invasive plants, native plants, trees, also about wildfire and about the benefits of having wildfire and what that does to the Florida environment and how much Florida depends upon wildfires. We also talk about sea life. We have the kids sit on our pier or our dock. We put them on so that they're sitting like in a boat. They really enjoy this. The boats go by and they wave and scream, so it's a great time. And we talk about sea life and manatees and the protection of manatees, and also about water safety. Then our Drawing the Line, which just recently we had a program last week on Thursday and Friday, the Long Creek Invasive Native Exchange Program, where we brought out Miss Gina Holt, and she brought out 2 birds of prey, where she featured a daytime raptor and also a nighttime. So she could show the difference between how these birds live, how they pick up their prey, and also that these are the type of birds that these children would see that inhabit this park. Also, she taught them about flight and how the birds fly. Then we also had the Fish and Wildlife Service come out, and they brought an alligator, which the kids really enjoyed that. They all got to touch it. And yes, and we did use hand sanitizer after. Every child had to do that. Then once those presentations were over, the kids went out on their exploration and started their Eco Station rotation. And here is Miss Bevan showing the kids a Sherman fox squirrel. I'm not sure how many of you have seen one of those, but they are rare and they are endangered. And then the students went to Mr. Butler's station and they planted some native trees. They pulled up some invasive Brazilian pepper. And then they also took some plant data. So once they planted the trees, we have to take data because we need to make sure that we're keeping track of the success or not the success of our trees. So the kids got to learn about taking data, even though this young lady kept telling her partner he was doing it wrong the whole day. Then the students went to our stormwater station and the non-point source pollution and water quality, where they learned about the estuary and the different levels of pH. We tested the canal water and the college waterway, along with the estuary and also drinking water. So the kids really enjoyed that and got a little hands-on experience on water testing. Then they learned about the future of the park and the history of the park from Jose Papa, a planner. The kids had a lot of great questions, and they were interjecting ideas that they had of what they would like to see in the park. So just to give you a little bit of the program overview on how many students we have educated since 2008. In-school programs, 1,145 students. Our Eco Station rotation in our parks, 641. Drawing the Line, which is held at our Longs Landing property off of Palm Harbor, 485, for a grand total of 2,271 students. I don't know about you, but that's a lot of students. It's a lot of kids, and they really take home a lot from this program. And where's the funding coming from? Well, it comes from grants, and it also comes from the recycling revenues. So those of you that recycle, put your green bin to the curb, thank you very much, because you are helping to teach our youth about the environment and especially protecting the home in which they live. So just to give you a brief overview of the benefits, and we could really be here all night, but I'm going to be quick. Students get to experience nature. A lot of the children have never been out in a wild environment, and they really were amazed to see the different trees and to be out in an environment which did not have concrete. And this program is very versatile. We can go from K through 12 and tailor the programs. So we, not only just the ages, but also the topics. We can cover a wide range of topics. And the children get to take those ideas that they learn in school, so from the books, what they learn from their teachers, and apply it in a real-world setting to be able to understand how the connection between what they learn in class and what is out in the world. Hands-on learning. It's great to let them get dirty, to dig a tree, to use pencil, use tapes, learn how to take data. Hands-on learning, I think, is the best way. I know that's how I learn. It's just, it really drives home those concepts. Also, students understand that they actually play a role in protecting the environment. So what they do in their everyday lives directly affects the home and the environment that they live in. Also, these students are going to become teachers, because I know they're going to go home and they're going to talk to their parents, and they're going to tell their parents, guess what I learned today? And Dad, I want you to put that can in the recycling bin instead of putting it in the trash. So it's always great to have students teaching their parents. Also, the kids start to learn about career opportunities. I think it's great they get to see these professionals in the field, what they do, and they start to understand that, one day I'm going to have to go to college, I'm going to have to pick a career. I didn't know that that type of job existed. And during this recent program, I saw several kids that were asking the professionals a lot of questions about their career and how they became a planner or a forestry officer or environmental planner. So it was really great. Not to mention the partnerships. We have developed so many partnerships, whether it's internal within the city, because several departments come together to put these programs on, and then also external out with the Division of Forestry, with the Fish and Wildlife Service. There's just so many partnerships. Also, Flagler County Schools. If it wasn't for them wanting these programs and participating in these programs, there would be no need to have them. And they're just plain fun. So if ever any of you want to come out and experience it, you're more than welcome. Our next programs are going to be in March and in April. And I'd just like to kind of wrap up with the kids get to take home a little goodie bag to remember after they've gone through the program. It has one of our Trek It Out maps, and I always tell them, make sure you show it to Mom and Dad so that they can come back out here or show you a different park or trail. And they get a cute little track card where they can match up animal tracks in the ground and try to figure out what they are, and a cute little notepad. So they all get one of these, and they're always excited to receive that. And I'd like to go ahead and introduce, we have two teachers here that are going to talk on behalf of the program. They just recently went through the Drawing the Line program at Longs Landing. And I'd like to introduce Rena Presti. She's a 6th grade teacher from Bunnell Elementary. And Tom Westley, 6th grade teacher as well.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to thank the City of Palm Coast, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and, of course, Carol Bennett, on behalf of the Flagler County Schools for hosting the Drawing the Line program. Without funding from the city for busing, our students would never have the opportunity from Bunnell to participate in this hands-on experience. with learning about invasive plant species, planting of native trees, water pollution, and native animals such as turtles, alligators, birds, and sea life in our beautiful ecological environment in which we all live. The students have learned through knowledgeable city employees such as architects, city planners, urban foresters, and volunteers how the city has kept this environment clean and helped maintain the native ecology of our county. Our students have brought back to the classroom a wealth of knowledge they will keep with them for the years as their years increase. Students have drawn on what they have learned about photosynthesis through Bill Butler and formed a connection in the classroom with what's being taught. There was a tree in the field that was overgrown, and it was being overridden by vines, and it was not producing photosynthesis from the sun due to the vines invading the tree. And they brought that back to the classroom and were able to explain it as we were going through our life science unit. We're presently in our classroom making an eco column, and from what we've learned from the city testing the waters for pollutants in the field with fresh and salt water, they will be able to apply the testing temperature, saline, and pH levels for our classroom eco column. A real-world experience in the field is so important for our students to continue to make connections with what we are learning in the classroom. They have enjoyed the field experience. The last 2 years that Bunnell has been fortunate to experience the program, and we hope that the city can continue to provide funding for this valuable learning exchange for our youth.
I'm kind of the backup guy, so I don't have a prepared speech, but I'll just give you a couple highlights that my kids had the day we went out that were very unique, and they wouldn't have had this opportunity unless, you know, the city funded this and the people paid for it. So the day we went, our students were able to see a bald eagle and a flock of wood storks all soaring together above us with some black vultures. So that was something a lot of them had never seen before. We got to see firsthand what we had learned about the nitrogen cycle, which was very complex and kind of dull for sixth graders, but it's something the state requires. And it's these challenges we face in the classroom, we rarely have something to really demonstrate for them. And they were able to see the water being tested, the impact of human fertilizer on the nitrogen cycle and how that increased the plant growth in the water and then all the problems that led to. They got to hold the gator, which was a thrill for a lot of the students in Bunnell. About half our students live in these kind of places, and the other half rarely leave the little cities. So that was an experience that they probably wouldn't have had otherwise. And another unique thing we saw was that the impact that humans have on the environment that we talked about all the time in science class is you can see at Long's Landing, right? Yeah, you can see at Long's Landing where the saltwater canals that humans built interfered with the freshwater system. So we actually got to see in the wetlands the cypress trees that used to live there, you know, are now just skeletons because that freshwater had been cut off. So these are actual experiences for things we've tried to learn in the classroom, and I think in a very simple way. You know, we didn't have to go on a really big trip. We didn't have to buy some fancy technology. We literally just went to a park down the street and had these experiences. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your
Council,
time.
Questions, comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, teachers. Agenda item number 3, presentation on Waste Pro Recycle Rewards winners. Talk about where we're getting our funding from.
Yeah, I'm going to start off by making sure everybody knows that our green bins are now blue bins, particularly if you want to be part of the recycling program. The Recycling Rewards Program is actually one of the new things we had in our contract that we implemented about a year ago. And Diane is going to go over it a little bit. We're still trying to get the word out, still trying to encourage people to use it, and she's going to help people out there, but also talk a little bit about the results, and I think there should be some happy people in the audience tonight. So Diane, with that.
Yes. Thank you very much. For the record, I am Diane Torino. I am the Contract and Risk Manager for the City of Palm Coast, and I am oversee, microphone not working? Better? Hello? I think we're working now? Okay. And I oversee the solid waste contract. And with me here today is Jim Sinelli. He is the Regional Vice President for, oh, that's better, the Regional Vice President with Waste Pro and can help with any questions that you may have. So what I'd like to do is start out with a little bit of history. As you know, on June 1st was the beginning of the new solid waste contract. And with that was the new Recycling Rewards program. And prior, I would say two weeks or so before the actual contract began, Waste Pro would deliver to every single resident a new blue bin with a radio frequency identification chip, an RFID chip, and on that chip was the address. So each address was assigned to a bin. And then what happens in the program is every time someone recycles and the truck goes by the house, there is a device inside the truck that reads that that person recycled for that day. So they get credit for the actual frequency that they recycle, not so much the tonnage, but the frequency. For anyone who would wish to get involved in the program, they can register by calling the 800 number or to go to wasteprorewards.com. And all they need to do is put in their name, and then they add in the number off of the RFID chip. And then at that point forward, they're registered, and every time they recycle, they get rewarded. For the discounts, all residents, because they participate in the program, because it is part of their solid waste bill, every resident can take advantage of the program. There are, I believe, Jim, 3 tiers?
Yes.
There are 3 tiers. Anybody who just pays their bill and pays their solid waste bill is in Tier 1. Tier 2 is, I think they recycle 2 times a month. They are eligible for more rewards. And anybody who recycles, I think, every week is then in the 3rd tier. And then that's where the quarterly drawings come in. We decided that every quarter we would have a drawing, and I think that includes all tiers, doesn't it?
Yes.
Okay. And basically what it is a proverbial, every time you recycle, your name gets thrown into a hat. And at the end of that quarter, they draw the names out of the hat, and then basically that's how you get, how all these folks that are here tonight receive their rewards. Any questions so far? When I started thinking about the recycling and how well we were doing with it, I decided to look back and look at all of the statistics on the tonnages of solid waste and recycling all the way back to January 1st of 2007, which is when Waste Pro started their contract with the city. And I've learned, and I think it's obvious here, that it's a slow process, but to train a community to do good things is obvious here. The tonnages of solid waste from January of 2007 have gone way down, and they continue to trend downward. Likewise, the recycling is trending upwards. And I think that told an excellent story of how people are changing the way they do things. Now, as far as the recycling participation, Palm Coast's recycling participation is approximately 60%, Jimmy. I think that it may even be ticking a little bit up from that.
Yeah, just to give you an idea how it relates to surrounding communities, Jacksonville and the city of Daytona only have about a 30 to 35% participation rate currently. Right before the we went to the Recycle Rewards program, we were averaging about 50 to 52%, but since Recycle Rewards been on board, we've been tipping at 60 to 62% every month. So participation is definitely up, which is a great thing.
Also, I decided to look into the actual participation in the Waste Pro Rewards program. And I was able to get in touch with Rewards for Recycling, which is the actual company that contracts with Waste Pro on this program. And they indicated that in the first 6 months of our program, which is where we're at now, we have one of the highest participation rates in the country, with roughly 25% of our residents, 32,000 households, 8,237 have signed up for the program. And when I asked Recycle Rewards about the rest of the country, they currently have about 37 cities across the country that they are utilizing this same type of program. And in the first 6 months of most of those, the average participation rate is 12 to 13%. So I think we're way ahead of the game, and I think it's only going to grow as we continue to market the program and people get to see the results. As far as the rewards, because of what we've done with Waste Pro and all the environmental ads that we have included in our contract, which includes the doorstep hazardous waste pickup, obviously the Recycle Rewards program, and oops, there we go. Also, why does that keep moving? Something's wrong here. Hold on. Am I pressing that?
I'm going to go to 5.
Ah, sorry. I'm technologically insufficient.
That's the page. That's the page.
There we go. Okay. And also because of the fact that Waste Pro is going to be converting all of their trucks to CNG as of, and that means compressed natural gas, as of June 1st of next year, the Northeast Florida Regional Council has awards that they give every year, and we had submitted an application for the Regional Award for Excellence in Environmental Stewardship, and we were granted the award. So on December 13th, there is going to be a banquet and awards ceremony up in Jacksonville, and I believe the mayor, I believe you might be going.
I'll be there.
And I plan on being there, so we're very excited about that. But the main reason that we are here today is to congratulate our first Waste Pro Rewards quarterly drawing winners. They all received a $100 Visa gift card. And Mayor, if you would be so kind to come up to the podium, and we will have a photo op.
Why don't we get all council members up there? Come on.
And as I call your name, if everybody could come up to accept their award and stay here so that we can get a photo at the end.
Okay. John Finelli. Come on up. Oh. Congratulations. Yes, thank you. Rebecca Lee.
Is Rebecca here? I did not get a hold of Rebecca today, so I'm not sure she's here.
John Lyman.
John.
John, Tanya?
You represent. Frank Schiaffone. Did I get that close to right? Perfect. Okay. Joanne Alicia.
There you go.
Yes, no?
Both Joanne and Paul. All right, we could all.
Let's go get in the picture.
We can all just kind of line up in front there, and Diane, would you and the Waste Pro?
Sure.
All right, you guys are going to need to squeeze together a little bit.
we heard this before?
All guys in the back.
A little bit more?
A little bit more, you know what? No, that's okay.
Okay, here we go. I think we're close. All right, we'll take a couple. 1, 2, 3. Let me get one more, but perfect. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you. I know how that works.
She's carrying it because she's going to get you a nice present. We hope. You know, it's very nice that we're able to present these awards, but I'd just like to remind all of our residents that recycling is its own reward. The less we have to put in the landfills, the better off our environment will be. The more we can recycle, the lower our costs will be. So I urge you all to participate. Agenda item number 4, select the vice mayor for 2012-2013. Kind of an interesting circumstance. There are 4 council members, and there are 4 years in a council member's term. So it works out that each council member serves as vice mayor at least once in their 4-year term. And it's also been the tradition that the outgoing vice mayor gets to nominate his successor.
Oh, flip a coin.
Flip a coin.
Yeah, let's flip a coin.
Do you have a coin?
They don't pay me enough.
I'll arm wrestle you.
Hey, here's a quarter.
All right. Thank you.
Is this a statement on,
Oh,
Bill, is this a statement on how we're doing? Or you just
heads or tails?
Tails.
He throws it on the table. It is
what is it?
It's a two-headed quarter.
tails.
What kind of quarter is that?
That's a, it's a Connecticut quarter. It's tails. So, Mr. Lewis, would you like to nominate Mr. McGuire as vice mayor?
He won the toss.
He won the toss.
So
Is there a motion?
Like to nominate me, but since I won the
Since you won the toss. Is there a motion to appoint Mr. McGuire
So moved.
as vice mayor?
So
Motion? Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you.
I think.
I like the
It's a good quarter.
special coin.
I did give you the quarter back.
Yes, you did.
Okay. Agenda item number 5, appoint one applicant to the Planning and Land Development Regulation Board. Do we have ballots?
Yeah, well, please.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question before.
Mr. DiLorenzo, a question.
Virginia,
Yes.
have any of these applicants gone through the Citizens Academy, if you know?
I do not know. I can find out for you, but I do not know.
It may be something we consider in the future to add to our application if they participated.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
If you do that, you should add it for the council members also.
Not a bad idea. All right, would you place your check mark next to one name?
Are you a certified bonded? No.
I have one vote cast for Sybil Lucas, one vote cast for Ernest Roberts, one vote cast for Charles Dean Roberts, and another vote for Sybil Dean Lucas.
So we do not have a majority. I would point out that the PLDRB represents all of our city. Current membership, there are 3 members from District 2, 1 member from District 4, 1 from District 1, 1 from District 3. There are no applicants for District 3. You may want to consider the distribution of throughout the city if you wish to.
Can I ask a question?
Mr. Lewis?
When I went through my list of candidates, I was looking for experience and background, and I noticed that there was only one person who had the needed knowledge and experience. So I'm just kind of concerned how we are voting it.
Any other council comments? Would you read off the results again, please?
Sure. There were 2 votes for Sybil Dodson Lewis, 1 for Ernest Roberts, and 1 for Charles Dean Roberts.
That was Lucas. You said Lewis.
Lucas.
Yes.
No nepotism there, Bill.
No nepotism. Okay. I got this flash. Yeah.
It's all public record anyway.
Unanimous, Sybil Dodson Lucas, all 4.
Thank you. Is there a motion to appoint Sybil Dodson Lucas to the PLDRB?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries without objection. This brings us to the consent agenda. Mr. Landon, were you doing any presentations on any of those items?
Nope.
No. Consent agenda items 6 through 9. Does anybody wish to remove anything from the consent agenda?
Yes, sir. 7 and 9.
7 and 9. Anybody else wish to remove anything? Okay. May I have a motion to approve consent agenda items 6 and 8?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries without objection. Agenda item number 7, Mr. DiLorenzo.
I had a question and a comment on this.
Mr. Landon, maybe you could just, for the benefit of the residents, what is agenda item number 7?
Agenda item number 7 is an indemnification for those of us that are actually on the retirement plan committee, if you would. What our advisors and legal counsel have indicated is that although we have a defined contribution plan and not a defined benefit plan, that there are times when employees believe they should have made a better return, and they can personally sue individuals responsible for the oversight of the program. And in this case, it's our HR manager, our finance director, and the city manager. And so what they've advised is that we basically are providing this service at no additional compensation, and that the liability should be covered by this indemnification insurance.
Your question now or your comment?
Yeah. I believe this also kind of forms the committee as well, because it hasn't previously been codified, for maybe lack of a better term. Right? It formalizes the committee.
It indemnifies the committee members. The committee members are, wasn't any formal process. It was just the 3 of us are the ones that really oversee it. So that's how.
You're currently overseeing it. The committee is already
Yes.
named?
We have been doing this for some time, yes.
Okay. Are all employees noticed when you meet? Are employees eligible to come to this meeting of the fiduciary committee? Is that the correct term? Yeah. Plan Fiduciary Committee?
The question's never been raised. Yeah, sure. The answer would be yes. I don't know if we've been
do they know
asked.
when the committee meets?
We don't post it, that type of thing. I don't know if we're required to post it. Good question. I do not know.
Okay.
As far as, is it closed? No, it's not. But
Mr. Reichman, any thoughts?
Yes, I'm more than happy to get with the administration, with staff, and make sure that there's compliance with all Florida statutes. We're going to obviously also want to check with our advisor for this plan to make sure that, to the extent that there is involvement by the employees, that they are involved appropriately. I'll get with Chris Quinn and we'll follow up on that.
You'll report back to council.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
I put in, just doing some research, or I just typed into Google retirement plan committee, and several best practices came up, and some of them included the makeup of the committee itself, and suggested that the makeup should include participants. The term was participants, and they said the participants were the rank and file employees, the non-leadership employees. And when I read this agenda item before our workshop, I thought it was odd that we didn't have any department head employees represented in this committee, because that's the majority of the employees in the city. And I would like to recommend that we expand the committee. It seems like it's best to have an odd number of people on this committee, but to expand it to include two members of non-leadership employees.
Mr. Landon, could you outline what the duties and responsibilities of this committee are?
I think I'm going to defer that to Chris Quinn, because this is really his brainchild. When I say we've met, it have not been something that we have done in the past. As we talked about in the workshop, this is really trying to take our oversight to a new level under the direction of Chris, and so I'm going to let him address what the concept is of the committee.
Okay. We really have, there's two different functions that we have with our retirement plans. One is the actual, what we call our fiduciary committee, which are the three positions that Mr. Landon had mentioned earlier. That's responsible for kind of the legal compliance work that's necessary with any kind of retirement plan. As part of that, being part of that function, the folks who operate on that are subject to fiduciary liability, and thus the indemnity agreements that are before council today. The second part of the plan related to our retirement plan, which is kind of a larger issue as to the types of benefits we offer, the company that we use for our retirement plan, educational services, things like that, are actually handled by our benefits team, which is a much larger group. There's about, I'd say, a dozen people on the benefits team from across all departments. Those are the folks that are actually going to be, for instance, we mentioned we're going out to bid on the actual plan administrator, which is Great West currently. It's that group that's going to do the determination of help evaluate which is the best bid that we receive back, things of that nature, how we get out to employees, what type of educational programs we put into place, as opposed to the smaller fiduciary group, which is dealing with the legal and compliance issues. So there are two separate kind of functions involved. The other thing to keep in mind is that the folks on the fiduciary committee have to be willing to serve, and take the risk of getting sued personally for any kind of decisions that are made on there. Not everyone is necessarily raising their hand to take that role, but to participate in the benefits team that we have, which was renamed, which started out as our health insurance team. We've had a lot of things before council related to the health insurance team. It's that same expanded group that's taking the non-compliance part of the retirement plan work that's going to be making those decisions and being involved in, like I said, in the bid process, the education, and the other communications with all of the staff at the city.
In light of Mr. DiLorenzo's question, the benefits committee, does the membership consider a rank and file part of that committee?
There are several rank and file employees on the committee. There's mostly, I would say there's some mid-level management, some secondary level supervisors, and then there's 2 or 3 rank and file employees from various departments that are on that committee.
Question.
Mr. Lewis?
Chris, you mentioned the fact that there's a fiduciary responsibility with respect to being on that committee. But then you added that there are other people, like the benefits people, who are all part of that structure. And that the fact that there's no liability coverage. Is that correct?
Well, in the case of the benefits committee, there wouldn't be legal decisions that are being made as far as plan structure, plan documentation, doing the monitoring of investments, things like that. It's more a matter of, structure, benefit levels, offerings to employees, educational programs, as well as, we've talked about things like making Roth IRAs available to employees through the plan. There's really no cost to the city to doing things like that.
Okay, that's perhaps the marketing side. But the three positions you have here, they will make an investment decision as to where the total fund will go or not go when they meet with the investment manager.
We'll be making decisions about which investments are available for employees to choose from, not decisions as to where employees will invest their money.
Not employees, but I'm sure the investment manager is placing the funds in different markets. And in this committee that you have here of management, I think when they meet with the investment manager, either they make decision as to whether they agree with his or her decision as to which markets they're going into or not. Not the individual stock markets, but the market in general, Asian markets, the other markets that the investment manager might be going into. They may agree or disagree. So that's a decision. That's a policy decision-making position, I would believe, and so therefore.
Right. Those are the fiduciary committee type decisions as far as what funds are available, what kind of market coverage we have, how many international versus domestic versus blue chip. Of course, we're going to use consultants to help us with that because none of us are individual experts in that area. But those are some of the decisions that would be made by the fiduciary committee.
But don't you think that they should have some liability protection?
That's part of these indemnity agreements. Part of the agreements is an insurance policy.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any comments, Mr. McGuire? Mr. DiLorenzo, what will make you?
Well, I'm comfortable with these, with these indemnities. It's not an issue with that. And admittedly, I don't have a lot of experience with this, so I did try to do some research, and this is what I found, that best practices call to have rank and file participants and legal counsel. I'd like to see, I don't know how it could hurt.
Well, once again, I think
do understand the complications of it, though, to have someone, who, yeah.
The idea, and it worked very well with the health insurance team, and the employees liked the input, and we actually had meetings where the health insurance team, which we're now calling the benefit team, actually put together educational programs, et cetera. They also are the ones that really do the heavy lifting when it comes to evaluating programs. So we think we have that in place. This is the structure here. This is more of the legal side of it, if you will. But as far as the plan itself, we do have the team that includes those frontline people that. So we're trying to cover that. We're trying to do exactly what you're suggesting. Feel it's been very successful. Every department is represented, once again, before we will involve employees, all employees that want to be involved in this process. Ultimately, when we go out and do the bidding process, the selection process, ultimately that will come to you for who we sign the contract with. So it's really multiple levels that we're involving here.
If in the future we wanted to expand the committee, is that a difficult process, or is it just a matter of saying we want it larger?
It's actually it's fairly informal.
Okay.
How that process works. The same thing is true with the benefit committee. When we started talking about wellness programs, there were some people interested in that, and they started coming because they wanted to get involved in the wellness program. We don't exclude anybody that shows an interest, and we do the same thing with retirement.
Okay. Well, at this point, then, at a minimum, I'd like the employees to have an opportunity to attend this meeting, to know about when the fiduciary retirement committee meets.
Okay.
And then we can go from there.
And it's relatively new, so for us, we've only met a handful of times, so we'll make sure that never really thought of it from that standpoint. So this would be good. We'll also deal with legal counsel and make sure that if it's something that has to be posted, we can post it too.
Mr. Landon, are these meetings, the fiduciary committee meetings, are they, do you have minutes? Are they?
Yes. We do.
So if we wanted to learn what's going on or get some flavor, because like Jason, I'm not really, I got a pretty good idea what you're supposed to do, but if you really wanted to sit in on it or so, you could read the meetings of the minutes.
Yeah, we have minutes. We've already started. It's almost like a newsletter where we're starting to send things to employees, trying to get them a little more knowledgeable and a little more involved. The whole goal here is to it's just like with health insurance. So many times, the health insurance pays the bills. You don't really know how much it costs, what the expenses are, what your options are, and we've worked hard to try to educate employees on those type of issues with health insurance. Been very successful. Now we're going towards the retirement to try to do the same. This is actually, with what are the fees. What are the costs? What are your options? The whole goal is to get the employees more informed and more involved. So that is the direction we're going. And with that, anytime anyone wants to see the minutes, it's kind of boring stuff. It's hard. Most people don't want to sit there and listen to this, but it's important to them long term.
And if I can just support what Mr. Landon had said there. The meeting minutes, the memos, anything that's produced from a compliance standpoint are going to be posted on the city's intranet site for all employees to have access to anytime they want. That's part of the project that we're working on now. I think it was mentioned at the last workshop that because we're going through this bidding process and reevaluating who the best plan administrator is for us, we're kind of holding some of those things back to push a lot of these things out simultaneously to the employees. But we did send out so far two memos about what we're doing and the kinds of work that's being done and some of the results of that work so far.
Question to Jason. Jason, are you suggesting that in addition to the city manager, financial director, human resource manager, that the fiduciary committee should be increased? That's what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Mr. Landon, I think you can take that as an indication of the will of council, but the issue before us is the approval of this agenda item, which is to provide indemnification for the committee, whether it be these three, an additional three, or whatever. You chose to remove this? I will. Are you happy at this point?
Yes.
Okay. Since this was removed from the consent agenda, we're going to open the meeting to the public. Anyone from the public wish to be heard on agenda item number 7? Anyone wish to be heard on agenda item number 7? Seeing no one approach the podium, we'll close the public portion of the meeting, come back to council. Mr. DiLorenzo, is there a motion?
Yeah, move approval of agenda item number 7.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries without objection. Agenda item number 9, Mr. DiLorenzo, you also removed this one from the consent agenda.
Yeah, it's a large amount of money, so I thought, we should just mention to the public that we're about to spend $358,000 to replace and upgrade some equipment to continue our level of service in various departments, and that's all.
Okay. With that, Mr. Landon, do you want to add anything about our fleet maintenance program?
Well, I guess,
For the benefit of the public?
yeah, the fleet maintenance program is actually one that we pay as we go, if you will. A lot of organizations, when they have a fleet, they borrow the money. We actually, every year in our operating budget, set money aside for replacement so that when the equipment runs its life, we actually have the cash in our fleet replacement program. So this is not coming directly out of the operating funds. This actually comes out of our fleet funds that we've set aside over the years of the life of the equipment. Actually an excellent program. Make sure we don't have any interest to pay.
Any other council comments? Again, since this was removed from the consent agenda, we'll open the meeting to the public. Anyone from the public wish to be heard on agenda item number 9 relating to the purchase of budgeted heavy equipment. Seeing no one approach the podium, we'll close the public portion of the meeting, come back to council. Additional questions, comments, or a motion?
Move approval of agenda item number 9.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries without objection. This brings us to the public participation portion of the meeting. Anyone from the public wish to be heard on any item not on today's agenda, please give us your name, approach the podium, give us your name, and limit your contribution to 3 minutes.
My name is Mary Ellen Lent. Before I begin, as a courtesy, because I do have a lot to say, and I will be reading quickly, may I provide the clerk with a copy of my statement?
Please do.
And I'd also like this made a part of the record. Okay, my name is Mary Ellen Lent, and I am here as a concerned taxpayer of this city regarding the Bulldog Drive debacle. As I looked at this matter, also from the perspective of a former elected official in the same capacity as this board I am addressing, the more my concern has increased. I feel what you have done to Gus Azram is both unethical and quite questionable. Why has this city and its representatives spent years doing the following? Denying the rights of the property owner to improve his property, changing zoning of this property to prevent further expansion of this business, resulting in Gus having to take that endeavor elsewhere while leasing out the property to others, approaching those renters of the property behind the property owner's back to pay them off ridiculous sums of money to leave the premises, telling any future interested party that they would never do business in that location, attempting an illegal eminent domain of the property, reaching a verbal agreement to settle this matter at a price that was at the time acceptable to the property owner in exchange for dropping a lawsuit pending against the city, then ignoring the settlement as soon as Mr. Azram made that show of good faith. Now let's look at just a few of the repercussions of your actions as they affect the residents and taxpayers of this city, as well as Mr. Azram. We, the people of Palm Coast, have paid ridiculous sums of money to 2 individuals to leave the premises. Mr. Azram has lost 2 years of rental income as a result. Change orders to an engineering firm to redesign the project temporarily. Environmental testing. How many other monies have been expended in legal fees and other incidentals to not resolve this problem? Not to mention, apparently, all the properties already purchased are sitting there now off the tax rolls while you figure out what to do. In all, from what I can see, you have spent many times more the amount needed to settle with Mr. Azram over and over in order to bypass this matter, and I cannot see any reasonable explanation for it. I have looked at other properties already purchased by the city in the Bulldog Drive corridor, and I can see no rhyme or reason or consistency in the payments made to other property owners, especially for vacant land that had no existing commercial use or value, some of which were purchased for well beyond their worth. His properties are not only improved commercial use, but it is the livelihood of his family and those he employs at a livable wage, which is rare in this city. There is a great deal of value in this versus a vacant lot. Finally, I have to wonder how you stretch the definition for the criteria of a CRA to fit profitable businesses, but mostly forest land, to be doing what you are doing. Why, instead of settling with Mr. Ajram, have you paid countless other people more money than needed to settle with him? Why do you seem insistent on continuing to shell out more money in the future on top of that for interim redesigns? Why does it appear you are and have been in continuous violation of the Burt Harris Act over this property, putting the city at risk of litigation due to interference of a legal business entity and the rights of the property owner? Why couldn't you have just let him continue to make a living while this gets resolved? So in conclusion, I respectfully request that you stop wasting the taxpayers' money over this issue by one or more of the following remedies. Release his properties from the DRI and immediately restore his zoning to allow the uses he purchased it for without any further interference to improvements he wanted to make years ago, or make this man whole financially.
15
and
seconds.
stop throwing money down the toilet to avoid doing the right thing by him and the taxpayers. Thank you for your time. I look forward to seeing some progress on this debacle in the very near future.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good evening. My name is Joe Canane. I've been at this podium several times over the years. I come this evening, number one, to wish you all happy holidays and a Merry Christmas. I also come to add the human side to what is going down here. We've heard the business questions being raised by the young lady, the previous speaker, which was done very professionally, and I appreciate that. Back in '96, when I came to this city that was not a city until 2000, I came for quality of life that I was looking forward to. GEA had just started up their business, servicing foreign cars and domestic cars. If it wasn't for this establishment, which I've been a satisfied customer all of these years, right up to the present time, I would have had to take my vehicle to Orlando or Gainesville. Anyone in the room knows what it is to go to Gainesville. It's not a pleasant task. So by going to Bulldog Drive, right next to the high school, I could have my vehicle serviced by a competent master mechanic, which this gentleman is. His children went to that very Flagler Palm Coast High School right across from his business. Unfortunately, when they graduated college, they had to leave Palm Coast for more substantial jobs because they're not available. Regardless of what the city council says, this is basically a retirement community with people servicing us. I like the quality of life here, but I do not like some of the things this council does. There is a sinister side to the council. It's anti-business. I don't know how many times I've been up here addressing what you do wrong, that you get involved in other people's business that you have no right to be in. And I think it should stop. This city is run by one person. His name's Jim Landon. He is the tail that's waving the dog. Not that I refer to you people as dogs, but that's the way I see it. It has to stop. We need a new type of management. You people do not have any oversight. When items come forward on the agenda, it's always staff recommends. The staff is right there. It's one person. His name's Jim Landon. The rest of his staff are puppets. And he keeps them in line by paying them salaries that some deserve and some I actually question. Leave this businessman alone. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Amerigo M. Semino, resident of Palm Coast for 35 years. First of all, I want to apologize to the young lady at the end of the aisle. I seem to have offended her by saying something to her, and I apologize, ma'am. Next, one thing I want to talk about is Bulldog Drive. Are you aware that there was a plan and it was approved until it got to the Landry man or whatever he is? It seems there's an agenda. It doesn't fit his agenda. I might mention a couple of the plans that have been made in Palm Coast. And one of them is a road, a crooked road running all the way from Route 100 to City Drive, or whatever the name is. The other one is City Drive, another monstrosity. This Bulldog Drive is going to empty onto that City Drive, which is another serpentine menace. Have you ever driven across that private run near the theater? If you drive 20 miles an hour, you're going to hit bottom. And this is another monument. This Bulldog Drive is going to be another monument. I say go back to the point where the system was satisfied, or was approved, and then forget this thing when you got back in behind closed doors. I thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Joseph Patrick Smith, Jr., and I'm a former resident of Palm Coast. I've known Mr. Adram since 1994, and I served in our United States Air Force for 11 years. I've known a lot of patriotic individuals during my service to my country. To me, one of the more patriotic individuals I've known is Gus Adram, probably more patriotic than a lot of the members of the service that I served together with. I've been very concerned over the years of what he's been put through by the city of Palm Coast, not because of something he requested. He purchased the property that he's been operating a business from, and that was something that was supposed to be under our rights, with my understanding, as an American, our right to property, to own it, and to be able to operate a business to earn income for our family. It's perplexing to me how a city government can create such a terrible environment for a businessman who does employ individuals at a good wage and has such a great reputation in our community. I was a property owner. I purchased 6 Kanawha Court in 1998. I worked for Mr. Adram, and I was very pleased to be able to be in his company while I earned my income. And along the time where we became incorporated as a city, I had my concerns, quite honestly. I was not in favor of the incorporation, predominantly because of my concern for increased taxes. And then I found as time went on that it became a very unpleasant business environment. And it got worse as time went on, in my opinion. And in 2004, I decided it was time for me to sell my home on Kanawha Court and move away from Palm Coast for the reason that it's difficult to have a pleasant business environment. Customers are fantastic, but the city government is very oppressive. Now, I would encourage you all to consider recognizing a potential mistake. I'm not saying that you all have made a mistake, but in my opinion, it's certainly a questionable decision-making process that you all have exercised. I believe that Gus Adram deserves to have some resolution to this issue. I believe that it has been drawn way too long. It's gone on far too long, and it needs to have some resolution. My personal feeling is that some of the decisions that you all have chosen to make have been very unethical. There's been very unacceptable delays in coming to some sort of resolution. I believe that Gus Adram has been treated unfairly as a business owner of this city. I believe that there's been unbelievable expenditures of taxpayers' money. I believe that there's been very questionable and possibly even unlawful practices in this whole process. What I would like to ask, and I first want to say thank you for allowing me to express my feelings and my opinions, my thoughts and my beliefs with you this evening. I would ask that you all please consider putting an end to this. Come to a resolution. We need to have an answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. Next speaker. So no one approach the podium. We'll close the public portion of the meeting. This brings us to discussion of city council matters not on the agenda. Mr. McGuire, we'll start with you.
Nothing to offer, Your Honor.
Nothing.
Mr. Lewis? Mr. Di Lorenzo? Obviously, Mr. Landon, with regard to the citizen comments this evening, there have been several allegations of improprieties and illegalities. Since we've got relatively new council members who may not be fully aware of the entire history, I would like you and the city attorney to give us a timeline of what has transpired with this whole issue, so the council can be fully aware of what we've done as a city.
I would appreciate the opportunity to tell the other side of the story, if I may, right now. I'm very prepared for it.
Well, we're not prepared for that at this point. This is still discussion by city council. Matters not on the agenda. No. Okay, discussion by city attorney of matters not on the agenda.
Nothing specific. Mr. Mayor, if needed, I'm more than happy to provide input on the issues that have been raised by the citizens this evening and any comments that the city manager may wish for me to add regarding that topic, either tonight or at a future council meeting.
Okay. Discussion by city manager, matters not on the agenda, but regardless of what comments you make relative to this issue before us this evening, I'm still asking that you prepare a written summary of what has happened, a chronology of all the activities that have gone on. So, Mr. Landon, discussion by city manager of matters not on the agenda.
Understood that, and think that'd be very, very appropriate. But I also think that because there are a lot of stories being told that maybe not the full story, I would like to at least tell the other part of that story. This actually is something that started before I came here. You know, the CRA was developed, the community redevelopment area was developed almost 10 years ago, I think 2004, so about 8 years ago. And the whole idea was to take the area there on State Road 100, which had a number of dilapidated homes, old mobile homes that were on septic tanks and water wells, and clean that area up and have it be a more presentable area, but also a safer area. The goal was also to do the same with some of the businesses there. And the whole concept of this is that the new development within the town center area, which is our CRA area, those new tax dollars would be the dollars used to help build infrastructure. Central Park was some of the funds that went to some of the gateway features there at 95 and State Road 100, but also to purchase property. And have spent, yes, many dollars, all dollars that are as a result of the new tax dollars in the State Road 100 to purchase the properties, and we have purchased many of them. Our whole approach was to obtain appraisals, and we have always offered appraised value for anybody who was willing to sell. We many times added to that additional cost to help people move. So we would pay for the cost, the appraised value of the property, which many times, if it was on Bulldog Drive, State Road 100, even though it was an older, sometimes mobile home, dilapidated home, it was appraised at commercial values because of the potential for commercial. So, and we continue to do that. Just recently, we bought another property at appraised value from someone who said they were willing to sell it. We have not forced anybody to sell any property to us, to this date. And that's been one of the things we've tried to do, is not force anybody to sell property they did not want to sell. But we also tried to strictly pay appraised value, being a steward of the public dollar. The one project that was the biggest challenge in this process was the widening and improvement of Bulldog Drive. That was actually one of the commitments to the town center area. The high school was to improve Bulldog Drive into a more city standard instead of the old rural standard it is today, as another primary entrance into the new town center, and also address a lot of the drainage and traffic circulation problems we have with the high school being on a state highway. So we've moved forward with that project, and initially it was intended to be a 4-lane divided city street. In order for that to occur, we had to have all the properties along the east side of Bulldog Drive, and that included 3 businesses. 4 businesses, but 3 property owners. The first one was on the very corner of State Road 100 and Bulldog Drive. Then the next 2 are the property in question that's owned by Mr. Ajram. And then the third one was an electric company owned by Mr. Cole. We started attempting to purchase those properties before I came here, and were able to reach an agreement with Mr. Cole, and I forget the property owner's name at the corner, but the property at the corner of State Road 100 and Bulldog Drive. Because we had to have those properties for the widening of Bulldog Drive, and by the way, at this point we had already purchased all the other properties that were residential north of that, we ended up paying a premium. We paid over appraised value because we knew that we had to pay the premium in order to widen Bulldog Drive, and because obviously more expensive to relocate the businesses. So we were able to reach an agreement with both Mr. Cole and the corner lot. And those prices, once again, were very high. But what we did with Mr. Ajram is offered him the same price per square foot as we paid for the other 2 parcels, including the parcel on State Road 100, which obviously being on a state road, on a major thoroughfare, has a higher value. The appraised value during the heyday for the property was in the 700,000s. I don't have the exact figures, but it was 700 and some thousand. Within the last year or so, I believe, maybe 2, but after the property values came down, the appraised value of Mr. Ajram's property is between $400,000 and $500,000. Our last formal offer for the property was about $930,000, about twice of its appraised value. And we also offered, as we did with all the other properties, to pay for the moving of those businesses, their relocation cost. Not to force them to move, but if you want to move your business, like we did with the residents, we offered to pay their relocation cost. So very consistent with what we offered other people. But the $930,000 plus that we offered for the property was a premium, and it was at or more than what the square foot price we paid for the property on State Road 100. Mr. Ajram rejected that offer and continued to want more money for the property. The other thing that has really changed is that the need for a 4-lane divided street there, because the development in the town center area has not taken place as anticipated, is not needed right now. So because Mr. Ajram did not want to sell his property at what we consider to be extreme premium, once again, the same square foot price as that on State Road 100 we paid, we did say, okay, we will take the 4-lane divided highway project or street project for Bulldog Drive and narrow it down to just 2 lanes, so Mr. Ajram could keep his property. Once again, with the principle that we would not force anybody to sell that did not want to sell. Even though we tried hard by basically offering twice appraised value. So when we made a final offer, Mr. Ajram rejected the offer. Like any other real estate transaction that doesn't work, we said, okay, we will no longer attempt to buy your property. And so we cut off negotiations with the idea that we could not reach an agreement, just like you would with any other real estate property. And that has been almost a year ago. And the last, we haven't heard anything since that time until just recently, a couple of weeks ago, from Mr. Ajram, and then, of course, again tonight. A couple other points is, once again, we did not force his tenants out. They actually came to me personally and said they would like to move, and they understand the city would help pay their moving costs, and we agreed to that. So I know that's not the story and the perception out there, but once again, trying to be business friendly and say, yes, we would like you to relocate in Flagler County, and at the time, both of them did relocate in Flagler County. The other thing as far as zoning, which is a whole different issue, is that when the city established the CRA, we did rezone the entire area that we refer to as Whispering Pines, and I'm going to forget the other name of it, but that whole area that we are along State Road 100 that had the dilapidated homes, to public, semi-public. The whole idea is we were going to purchase the properties and it would become public, semi-public. The commercial businesses along State Road 100 objected to that, and Mr. Ajram objected to that. And all of the commercial properties that objected to that rezoning, we rezoned it back. The city took the initiative and rezoned it back to commercial. Mr. Ajram was one of those that requested that, and we granted that request. After we granted the commercial zoning, Mr. Ajram also came in for special exception because of the commercial zoning district. In order to have a car lot, a sales lot, you have to have what we call a special exception. He applied for that, and excuse me a second. City Council, going through that process, approved his special exception for a car dealership. The two zoning requests he made, the city granted. The car repair is grandfathered. It's been there, can continue. Car sales was not grandfathered, and it's true with all the new businesses in that area. There are standards they have to meet. There are town center standards. Just like you have to meet setbacks, you have to meet parking requirements, a number of those things. Mr. Ajram, for any new business, which a car lot would be included, has to meet those standards we require of anybody. His auto repair, because it's existing, his grandfather does not. Same as we would treat any other business. We have granted the zoning, we've granted the special exception, but he still has to meet the same standards. So if he meets those standards, comes in and meets those standards, he would be allowed to have the car lot. He can continue his car repair as is, because that's grandfathered. In the meantime, all the city is doing is building the 2 lanes so Mr. Ajram can keep his property, and who knows what the future holds, but at this point we have no need for the property as per his request when he did not accept the offer for twice the appraised value. And that's kind of, we are not trying to do anything at this point to obtain the property. If Mr. Ajram would like to start talking about us purchasing the property, City Council's policy has been to offer appraised value. In this case, because of the history, I would support the idea of offering more than appraised value, but the value or the purchase demands, the asking price was $1,200,000, and this property is not worth $1,200,000. And I believe Mr. Ajram has agreed to come down as low as $1,100,000. But once again, still, this property is not close to that, and in my opinion, would be irresponsible to purchase a property that we really do not need at this time at that kind of price. Ultimately, though, it would be City Council's decision is if you want to pay that asking or demanding price. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Again, this is not something City Council is going to deal with this evening, but I am asking that you kind of give us all of this, and Mr. Reichman, feel free to chime in that presentation as far as what the city's role has been.
And thank you for the opportunity to tell that story, and we will do that. The only other thing is a reminder for that the 15th, Saturday, we're going to have our Christmas event here, the Christmas parade. It starts at 6, and prior to that, at Central Park, we will have Santa, and we'll have a special prize, a surprise for people to come out and enjoy the festivities. Saturday, the 15th, all afternoon. Thank you.
Just two other announcements, actually. For those of you that have access to the Intracoastal, on Saturday, December 8th, the boat clubs in Flagler County are going to do their holiday boat parade, lighted boat parade, kind of neat thing to watch. If you're interested, on Tuesday, December 11th, from 4 to 6 p.m., the Flagler County Legislative Delegation will be meeting in the Government Services Building at the county. These are our senators and our representatives, so this might be an opportunity for you to meet some of the newly elected individuals. And with that, Mr. Vice Mayor?
Move to adjourn.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.